Hi guys, how are you today? So I think we are waiting for about a minute or two, just to let everyone join. So we will start in about, I guess, 1 minute. Up until then, you can see a nice background, Australian localization, what's new for our customers. So we'll wait for a minute and then get started. All right, so let's get started. A very good afternoon to everyone present. My name is Yatin, and today I'll be your host of this webinar, Australian localization. What's new for our customers for the phase one. So we didn't add phase one here, but it is the phase one. So without further ado, let's get started. So that's me. The picture is quite old. I think I've, buffed a bit, but it's okay. Okay, moving on. So the agenda for today is we'll be focusing on the new features and demo. Secondly, we'll address a concern on the tax report. That is, from what we heard before on the auditing part of it. Third, we'll be talking about what's next, right? What is phase two about? What are the existing, how are we going to be building on the existing features? What is upcoming? And lastly, we'll end up with a Q&A. Now, before we, actually deep dive into understanding what was done in the phase one of the localization, I'd like to take a step back and go over the three qualifying factors on the basis of which we at Odoo here in APAC and in general as well guide our localizations. The first qualifying factor that we look at is that if an intended feature, is it a legal requirement or not? By legal requirement, simply is it something that is set by the tax authorities or the accounting administration, etc. The second factor that we look at is that the intended feature has to be a need and not a want. Tying up with the second point is that if it's not a legal, let's say, if it's not legally defined, the intended feature, then it has to be a functionality that is completely missing out of Odoo in the sense that we cannot find any doable workarounds and the features which the market absolutely needs. Now, you might be wondering that, okay, how do you define what the market actually needs? That is through our APAC feedback project. So essentially, we have a number of tasks running in that feedback project across all the localizations. Specifically for Australia and the other localizations, what we do is that we take feedback from our partners, our own direct customers, even our colleagues from our internal teams. So let's say my colleagues from the sales teams, even our services team members as well. So my colleagues with whom I work with directly as well. So the ultimate aim is to make sure in the localizations that we build is that a new company can set up their system independently without any legal or functionality gaps. Now, since we have defined that, let's jump right in. For the first part of this presentation, we'll be talking about the new features that we worked on in this phase one for the localization itself. That is specifically PEPPOL, documents format, stock valuation configuration, exchange difference accounts, others, which means some other smaller features, and even bigger ones, but they're grouped into the others category. And then some key existing features that have a very strong impact on the market as well. Let's jump right in. So PEPPOL. I'm confident that most of us here know what PEPPOL is. So it's an international network originally originated out of the EU that allows businesses to exchange electronic documents, right, such as invoices or purchase orders, etc. So the whole idea is that how does it affect businesses in Australia? It first of all it ensures that we have a streamlined business process for the sharing of these documents, security, etc., etc. I mean, I can go on and on. So the basic idea is that in Odoo, what we have done up until now is that we have developed specifically for Australia the ANZ PEPPOL format, which basically allows the users to now generate the relevant PEPPOL formatted file for ANZ region and then export it out from the relevant invoice. So let's say the customer invoice in this case. Now you might be wondering that, okay, that's good, but what's next, right? So essentially, our plan is in the future, we are working towards becoming an access point or and also an SMP, and that is something I'll talk about in the next steps part of my presentation. Let's move on. The second change was in the documents format. So essentially, as a part of this localization, we really wanted to focus and we really wanted to go over the things that were already done before and try to revamp and refine them as a first step. So we went over the documents format and we got some feedback. Essentially, for these documents, we added the word tax in front of these, exportable PDF documents itself. So minor change, but super crucial. Stock valuation configurations. So the third change that we did was that we added an additional chart of accounts on the product category in an automated valuation in the system. So let's say the stock output account, now we have a dedicated account for it called goods shipped, not invoiced. The second change that goes within itself is turning on the Anglo-Saxon accounting in the localization by default. So why did we do this, right? Essentially, what we realized from the feedback that we received is that the previous configurations, so we're talking about V15 and before, because this part is, I mean, the changes that we pushed are solely from V16 onwards. The idea was that we realized that we could revamp them in a way that with Anglo-Saxon accounting, we are recognizing the cost as well as the income at the same time when the invoice has been validated, right? And we wanted to make sure that we are indeed taking into account those business cases where a business does not invoice at the same time as the delivery of the goods. So this setup captures all those use cases and gives you the accurate result of your cost of goods sold in an automated valuation, of course. Exchange different accounts. So here we simply bifurcated the gain and loss account into two separate accounts. And why did we do it? Because we had the respective legal change coming up that you can see on my right side of the screen. It's right for me, yes. Okay, some other new features. We have new Australian servers available now in Odoo SAS and SH. And what this means is that if your databases were loading in 1 second or lesser than that, now they load, I guess, 4 to 5 times more faster. Don't take my word for it. I just know they're super fast. I don't know the exact technical, but they're super fast because you have servers in the region as well. So this is where you can see Oceania, Australia region as well. So anyways, super important and a great move towards the market. Similarly, we have gone through over the taxes, tax groups, and chart of accounts in the system. What we realized is that they needed some cleaning up. So we went over the taxes, cleaned them up a bit in terms of configurations. We went over the chart of accounts, tax groups, fiscal positions also were looked at. Now they're cleaner and much more lean per se. I would like to mention here that we have realized that in the rolling release version of 16.3, as of now, we have noticed that there has been a change in the tax names that might be a bit, I would say, not clear. We are aware of that and we are working towards fixing that onwards so that the further releases for the localization are following what we did back in 16 itself. So just as a point of reference. We added the ABN and ACN fields on the res.partner. So essentially, this was more about renaming the fields and ACN on the res.companies itself. So small change, but important. Fiscal periods, by default, now the fiscal periods will automatically show up June 30th once you install the localization module. Earlier, this was, I believe, the 31st of December, or it was not the accurate representative date. Obviously, all these configurations that I'm talking about, they can be changed manually by yourself. This is just like the standard package, how it comes with. Asia Pay. So yes, this was new. For Australia, so okay, before jumping right into it, the idea is that Asia Pay, as some of you might know, is a digital payments provider that's linked with multiple payment options throughout the APAC region, right? In terms of Australia, how it's relevant is with the buy now, pay later solutions. So Asia Pay is integrated with Afterpay, Hum, and ZipPay. So you need to make an Asia Pay account. We have a very detailed documentation available online. So you can just search on Google, Odoo, and Asia Pay. The first link or the second link, can't properly remember, should be about Asia Pay. So um, that's also there for uh, for the whole community to use. Moving on, some key existing features. So the Australian Bankers Association batch payments. So this is something that is super important as well in the market. We have had this feature in the module in our localization since a while. However, we realized that uh, some things about this feature probably are not clear. So we would be focusing on it in our demo just in the next slide itself. But this is a super important, a super crucial feature that we already have in standard. Second is that we have the FPOS integration with Stripe. So Afterpay is included with both Stripe and Asia Pay as well. So you have FPOS with Stripe, Afterpay with Stripe, and Afterpay with Asia Pay as well. All right, so demo time. Um, let's jump right in. So the context is that the company is called AU Localization Co. So it's a newly established entity in Gold Coast. They've recently had an accounting manager, that is me, to take ownership of the books. The head of finance, Michael, has made rechecking their newly acquired software's, configurations a top priority because we will commence officially the business from the new fiscal year, July 1st. So as I've been familiar with Odoo, I understand the changes and I plan to go over the settings, run a few test transactions to see everything has been configured correctly. And this will be solely based on, what we have just discussed in the new features aspect, as well as talking about the ABA batch payments. So let's jump right in. All right, so that is our database. The first thing that we do is we check the company details. So we click on settings and then we go into update info. Here, as you can see, we have, the contact linked. I could have put an address. We can also put something like, street one or uh, that should suffice. ABN. So that's about it. We save it and then we go back to the main dashboard. The second thing we look at are the accounting configurations. So let's jump here. Let's click on configurations. Let's click on settings. Now you can see that we have the default sales purchase taxes, very standard, fiscal country Australia, main currency. What we can look at is, okay, batch payments are activated, exchange difference accounts. So here you can see we have two separate accounts now, all configured with standard. We have the Anglo-Saxon accounting turned on by default. Then we have the fiscal periods. So we have last day, June 30th as well, properly configured, right? So that is the second step. The third step is that we look over the accounting configuration, so specifically the chart of accounts. When we click on the chart of accounts, what you will see that these 109 accounts are a complete set of chart of accounts that are inclusive of the accounts that Odoo needs to run properly. So because, in Odoo we have certain standard accounts, let's say the trade debtors or the trade creditors account, that is very well standard in the system. Bank suspense account is a standard account. Outstanding receipts, outstanding payments, all these accounts, they're necessary to work to the working of the system. Secondly, this list also includes the accounts that uh, normal company might need. Obviously, we can have 500, 600 chart of accounts. But again, the idea is that when we talk of a complete set, this is what we consider um, a company needs to start off with. Yes, we can add more custom accounts. Yes, we can add more, other configurations itself in the chart of accounts itself. But this is a complete set that we now have. Let's move on to taxes now. So when we consider on the taxes, so you can see that we have sales and purchase, a total of 34 taxes, sales, click on purchase, all these particular taxes right here. Last but not the least, let's have a look at the product categories. So we go down, we click on product categories, click on all. Here we can see that, okay, we have the stock output account, goods shipped not invoiced. We have the correct expense account, and this is where we are. So now I would like to run a test with a customer invoice. I'd like to see whether the taxes, the value that they're calculating, is it correct or not, right? Click on invoices. Let's create a new invoice. We add test customer. We add a test product. Let's say I want to buy 5 units of this, 55. And let me put the invoice date as of today. So now I can see that, okay, my invoice is in the draft stage. And then I have the untaxed amount, the GST right here, and I can click on confirm. You must have noticed that two things might have happened, right? Our invoice got posted, and then we have this file that is in the PEPPOL format that is being generated automatically. You might wonder, how did this happen, right? So let's go back to configurations. Let's click on journals. Let's click on customer invoices. Here, we have the electronic invoicing ANZ BIS billing 3.0 automatically checked. So what this means is that when I click on my invoice right here, I see that this is the PEPPOL file in the correct format, and this has been validated itself. So this can be exported out for now and then be uploaded to a third-party integration provider that is connected with the PEPPOL e-delivery service network that makes this file go to your recipient itself. So let's say the test customer. In the future, and I'm just going a bit ahead because I will be talking about this in the next step slide, when Odoo becomes an access point, this all process is going to be automatic. So Odoo is going to send the files through our own, our access point, and then goes through the whole PEPPOL network, gets received by the customer's access point, and the customer receives it. But this is something I'll just talk about in a few slides in the next steps. Now, since we have made this invoice, I like to do a quick check on my tax report, right? So when I click on my tax report, I can see that, okay, let me put the filter for June, unposted, and I just want to see, okay, so why is it 1127, right? How is the value coming through? So I have all these journal items right here. I'm going to apply a simple group by of basically journal entry and taxes. So what this does is that right now, when I click on group by, I have two bifurcations. I have the 275, that's the base amount. Then I have the tax amount, that is 2750 right here. So, okay, this makes sense. The totals make sense. It's fine. I'd like to now check for the ABA batch payments itself, right? Since we talked about it just a slide ago. So let's have a look and how do we set up the ABA feature. And I just want to see, I mean, if it's correctly configured previously or not. Keep in mind that I have, before the software was handed over to me, um, as I'm a part of the AU Localization Co, someone had already spent some time working on the configurations. So I'll just go through each and every configuration that we need for the ABA batch payments to work. The first thing we need to keep in mind, and this is a two-step process, is that once we click on accounting, we need to first ensure that the journal for the bank account, so let's say it's Westpac in this case, it has the ABA relevant information filled here. So the bank account number, which is this one, it should be relevantly, okay, the BSP should be filled, code, supplying username is the company's name, APCA is the identification number. For some banks, obviously, we need to contact them and get this number, but for some banks, 690 is the default code. Then I need to make sure that I have my account number set here properly. So when I click on this arrow, I have the correct account number, account holder that's related to my contact, BSB here, and the bank. So when I look at the bank, I'm able to see this information. So I've configured the bank account, and linked my bank account with my relevant journal. That's the first step. The second thing we need to ensure is that the vendor's bank account is also correctly configured. So when I click on vendors, I should have two vendors here, test vendor and test vendor 2. I click on the test vendor, I go to the accounting tab, I have the bank NAB account number, and this send money is ticked right here. This essentially means that it can be used for outgoing payments. Similarly for test vendor 2, a different account configured right here. How do you look at the relevant bank accounts that are being configured? You just click on, you can just type bank accounts like that. Click OK. So I want to see NAB here. This is the relevant account number. I can see that I've configured the bank similarly like this. Similarly, I've done the same thing for the second vendor as well. So once these configurations are correct, right, what we need to make sure, and for the purpose of this example, I'll directly create a vendor bill with test vendor 1 and test vendor 2. So I'll create a new bill. I will type test vendor, and I'll put the bill date as of today. Let's see, let's go back and put a test product, and then let's put this as 555, right? And then quantity is probably 100. All computed. Then we just click on confirm. When we click on register payment, what we need to ensure is that the payment method is set as ABA credit transfer. So this is the recipient bank account, meaning this is the vendor's bank account who will receive this payment. I click on create payment. So this payment, which can be accessed via here, is already it's in payment, means pending reconciliation in Odoo's terms. We'll have a look at it just now. I will then duplicate this, and I just want, I had two codes, so I'm buying these product from two vendors, two different bank accounts. I click on 27th, and then maybe I got this cheaper. I got this for 525, right? And I confirm. I register another payment. Then I click on payment method. I create a payment. So now I should have two payments, right? That I need to basically create a ABA file and then send it to my bank. So what I do is that I click on vendors next, click on payments, and then I just use the filter ABA payments to send. It will show me two payments that I need to send basically to the bank. I select all of them. I create a batch. When I create a batch, you will see that it is right now in the new part. When I click on validate, automatically in the chatter, Odoo will create the ABA file in the correct format, which we can export now and then upload it on the bank's portal. So once the bank processes this, we will just see one line in our respective reconciliation, in the bank statement line that we receive, and then we can reconcile it all together, this batch payment with the bank statement line. So you might wonder, and a last point on this is, how did I get the payment method to be ABA credit transfer? So that configuration happens in the journal. When I click on my journals, first of all, the ABA information will only show when the type is bank. And if I click on outgoing payments, you will see ABA credit transfer here by default. So having said that, I feel very confident that, okay, the system can handle the workflows itself, and it is good to go. So now let's revert back to the slides. That's actually the end of the demo, but let's move on. So concern. So as I showed you in my demo, we realized that the BAS, or the tax report that I just mentioned in my demo, that's actually the BAS report, in Australia. We realized that the group by that I use, journal entry to taxes. So the taxes group by has been there from V15 onwards. That allows us to see the visibility of, let's say, the base amount as well as the tax amount, which can be easily then exported into, Excel as well here. If if certain values need to be looked at, if these values need to be exported out. So you have the complete visibility right here in terms of the tax report as well, or the BAS in other cases. All right, so that was the part regarding the new features demo and addressing the concern on the tax report. The next part is about the upcoming features, which is phase two. So what are we working on, right? Let's see. Are you guys ready? Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so sounds good. All right, so internalized payroll. So as you can see, we have these tasks in our pipeline. So I'll take the one from the left and then I'll go towards the right. Internalized payroll. So the idea with internalized payroll is that high level on on a direction that we're heading, we want to build in-house solutions and avoid doing too many third-party integrations whenever feasibly possible. So Employment Hero, aka Keepay, as it was known before, we really love that integration, and I'm sure you all do as well. Um, there's been a slight change, I believe, from the best of our knowledge right now, that customers cannot directly create a KeyPay account. They need to go through an authorized KeyPay partner to help them create a KeyPay account, which they can then use for the integration. That was the information that we currently have. We're trying to get more updates on it. But the sole reason for us to work on our own payroll module was the first one that I mentioned, that right now we are trying to build in-house solutions. So where are we with this internalized payroll module? So we started work on it a couple of months ago. Right now, our aim is to push the withholding taxes, so let's say the 6 to 7 different schedules that we have, into a rolling release version, most probably 16.4. That should allow you or the or the users to compute the right tax for the legal payslips. Um, Please keep in mind that right now we won't be legally compliant. The only reason we are pushing this into, let's say a rolling release later on is to make sure that we get feedback. So your feedback would be super important for us to refine this, and hopefully in the future we can build a comprehensive and a cohesive payroll module, and that can also be reflected in your BAS report. So that is some direction that we are trying to head in the future. Um, and yeah, so that's typically an update there. The second thing that we're working on is the tax depreciation module. So in Odoo, we are able to do, the standard depreciation. We only have one depreciation board. We realized that there was a need to also incorporate a tax depreciation module, tax depreciation for the assets itself. So we are very close to pushing it in one of our rolling releases in the future. And hopefully, it should give the accountants more power to sort of, help them take the best advantage of the depreciation allowances, when dealing with the BAS returns itself, GST returns, etc. The third thing that we are also working on is the integration with Starshipit. So Starshipit is typically your leading provider of an integrated and automated, fulfillment solutions. They're connected with, let's say, the Australian Post, Aramex, DHL. So we are in the pipeline of basically pushing forward with that integration with Odoo right now. And our aim is to fully have it ready by V17. So that's what we're aiming at right now. So let's go over the bank sync. So this is a topic that that we have been visiting quite closely, because we have gotten feedback that certain instances the current bank sync integration, it does not work. So the whole idea behind it was that we had to take a step back and look at the current processes that we had in place to address these issues. What that led to right now is a very open communication channel of reviewing the past and the present issues with our current provider, Yardley. mostly Yachtley in the market. So our aim is right now that we want to fully address the present or the past issues that we have been facing through an open communication platform that is still in the works, but we have made a proper cadence for reporting these issues through our, let's say our odoo.com/help through our support teams. So what needs to be kept in mind if a bank sync, issue comes across with your integration or, to your customers as well, please make sure to create a support ticket where you mention that three things. First, the region, AU and Z. Second, you mention the bank. And lastly, it's very important for us to also see that, okay, what is the bank name? And are we working with Yardley or, and how is this error coming through? Salt Edge, etc. So that's the first part, the first update on BankSync. The second is that we are looking to shift from the normal screen scraping to open banking. So we are having current internal discussions, and that is the way forward with this integration as well. Rest assured that we are very actively working towards improving or fixing out the current errors that we might have in our existing integration with Yachtley, and we are very hopeful that this will in 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 an overall aspect really help the market with having proper bank feeds in the future. Lastly, we are also, as I said, about the PEPPOL, we are very close to also, becoming an access point. So from 16.2 onwards, we have basically started our live tests of, the AP and the SMP servers. We are hopeful that we should get an update on the exact timeline for the PEPPOL becoming an access point. So right now we are in the live testing phase. So hopefully that is something that we can also incorporate in the future. So because we understand that is going to be a major requirement globally as well. Even in Australia, that's going to be mandatorily enforced in the coming years for the businesses. So that is something that we are actively working on. Another point to note is that from 16.2 onwards, we're also able to export multiple sort of invoices together in a batch, which my database is in 16, so I cannot show it to you here. But that is a quick update on us becoming an access point and SMP in the future. So that was actually the end of my webinar presentation. Now we are open to questions. All right. So all right. So I don't think Odoo needs to manage awards. As long as I can add my award pay rates into Odoo, I'll be happy. So this is so this was another point that we are actively looking into. So we are still deciding on which direction that we need to go because we understand the integration with Employment Hero. The awards are very well managed there. But yes, point taken on that. And so award pay rates, and this is something direction that we'll be looking forward to going as well. We still need to make a firm decision on it, but we're heading in that direction. So what are the plans for making it possible to send statements to the customers? Um, I don't understand the statements to customers point here. Awards, is there a plan to incorporate a thorough job costing system into Odoo natively? Uh, in in essence, the idea is, especially for the job costing system, so that is something that we are sort of, we have received quite a few queries on it in the past. So essentially, when we talk about the different rates that go into the job costing itself. That is something that's a direction that we are indeed working on in the future, and we still need to have all the consolidated sort of the whole overview and the whole requirements workflow with us. So we are still in the research phase. Obviously, if you have good feedback for us and how we could go forward with that, any inputs would be appreciated, and that's something that you can reach out to your respective account manager. If you're a partner, for customers, existing customers, reach out to your salesperson, and for new customers, you can go to the odoo.com live chat help if you have any feedback for us on that front. Okay, will the okay, I have another question. So, yes, for payroll, Hemant by Hemant, are we looking at getting STP compliant? Yes, we are looking to registering with STP phase 2. Um, I'm looking through my questions. What about the NZ localization? So with the New Zealand localization, that is something that we are actively working on as well. Right now, our priority is both for the both ANZ region. New Zealand localization is also in the works because we have gotten feedback for it as well, and we're looking into it. Okay, let me check. I have uh, 1 second. All right. Mm, okay, I'm just looking at the questions. They're taking a bit longer to load. Okay. Could you advise once again when to expect the localization update and new features be available? So yes, so as I as I as I mentioned, about the timeline for the respective features itself. What we're looking at is essentially for Starship It, we're looking to push it into V17. For our own internalized payroll, that will not be legally compliant as of now. That's something that we're looking at to push into V16.4 with some feedback regarding the other points that I just mentioned right here. PEPPOL becoming an access point and bank sync through open banking. As I said, these are things that are still in the pipeline, and we are very actively working on it. So yeah, that's about it. Um, I believe, how does the updates from one version to another? I believe, Manal, that is something that you can refer to our upgrade documentation, or if you're linked with, I mean, right now, I mean, for your partners, you can reach out to your account manager and they can direct you to the appropriate resource. All right, so I feel that okay, there was another question by Jerry. Are there any plans to connect to the ATO for lodging BAS? So yes, that is actually a part of the SPR reportings that we are aware of. So we are in the process of working towards that. I think even for a payroll module, we need to ensure that we are SPR compliant. So yes, it is definitely in the pipeline. But the priorities that I mentioned, they come first. After that, we'll be focusing on the other requests as well. So yeah, I believe that was it for the questions today. I believe we have indeed sort of run out of time. So what I can do is that show you guys this slide. For partners, contact your account manager. For existing customers, contact your salesperson. And for new customers, you can contact live chat at odoo.com/help. Again, thank you everyone for your time. Um, and uh, and yeah, have a great day and a great rest of the week.